The monster of Westfield. The 18-year shadow Westfield, New Jersey, is the kind of town where nothing ever happens. And that's exactly why people move there. In the early 1970s, it was the pinnacle of the American suburban dream. And no house represented that dream better than Knoll. A massive, 3-story Victorian mansion with 19 rooms, a grand ballroom, and a glass-enclosed porch. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares when the doors are locked from the inside. This is the story of John List, a man who didn't just kill his family. He meticulously erased them from existence to satisfy his own twisted sense of morality. To understand the horror of what happened at Knoll, we have to look behind the glasses of a man who thought he was doing God's work. John List was the definition of rigid. He was a Sunday school teacher, a Boy Scout leader, and a successful accountant. Or so it seemed. In reality, John was drowning. He had been fired from his job at a local bank for being too detached and unproductive. But John couldn't face the humiliation of failure. For months, he maintained a haunting routine. Every single morning, he would dress in his best suit, kiss his wife Helen goodbye, grab his briefcase, and drive to the train station. But he wasn't going to work. He spent his days sitting in the station, staring at the tracks, or reading newspapers in the public library until it was time to come home. He was a ghost in his own life, long before he became a killer. He began skimming money from his mother's savings just to keep the lights on in that massive, decaying mansion. He realized that soon the money would run out. The facade would crumble. And in John's mind, the only exit was through blood. November 9th, 1971, a gray, overcast Tuesday. John didn't snap. He didn't have an outburst of rage. He approached the slaughter of his family with the cold precision of an audit. After the children 16-year-old Patricia, 15-year-old John Jr., and 13-year-old Frederick left for school, the house fell quiet. He found Helen in the kitchen. As she sipped her morning coffee, John stepped behind her with a 9mm Steyr automatic. A single shot to the side of the head. She never saw it coming. John didn't stop to mourn. He climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor to find his mother, Alma. She was 84, frail, and had been his greatest supporter. He shot her once above the left eye. He later claimed he did it because he couldn't afford to take care of her anymore. Now, the house was a tomb, but the day was only half over. John spent the next few hours cleaning. He wiped down the counters. He moved his wife's body. He even made himself lunch. He was waiting for the school bus. When Patricia and Frederick came home, John was waiting in the shadows of the hallway. He killed them instantly as they stepped through the door. But the plan hit a snag with John Jr. The eldest son was at a soccer game. John actually drove to the school, watched his son play for a few minutes, and then drove him home. Inside the house, John Jr. sensed something was wrong. He saw the blood. He fought. He scrambled for his life through the darkened rooms of the mansion. John had to fire multiple times to bring him down. When the final shot echoed through the 19 rooms of Knoll, John List stood alone in a sea of silence. What John did next is what haunts investigators to this day. He dragged the bodies of his wife and children into the grand ballroom. He laid them out on sleeping bags, side by side, as if they were merely resting after a long day. He couldn't move his mother, so he left her in her upstairs apartment. Then the ritual began. John went to every room and turned on all the lights. He synchronized the radio to a local station that played nothing but somber religious hymns. He sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a 5-page letter to his pastor. In it, he confessed to the killings, but framed them as an act of mercy. He claimed the world was too sinful, and his family was losing their way. By killing them, he believed he was saving their souls for heaven. But the most chilling detail was the photographs. John went through every album in the house, every framed picture on the mantel. He took a pair of scissors and carefully cut his own face out of every single photograph. He wanted the world to remember the victims, but he wanted his own face to be forgotten. He was erasing his identity so he could build a new one. For nearly a month, Breeze Knoll sat on the hill, glowing with light and echoing with organ music. Neighbors assumed the family was tending to an ill relative in North Carolina. It wasn't until December 7th, when the lights finally began to burn out one by one and the grass grew too long, that the police forced entry. They were met with the smell of death and the haunting sound of the radio still playing hymns in the dark. But John was gone. He had left his car at JFK Airport and vanished into the American landscape. For 18 years, John List was a ghost. He moved to Colorado. He changed his name to Robert Clark. He got a job as an accountant. He even got married again. His new wife, Dolores, thought she had married a quiet, deeply religious man. They lived a boring suburban life in Virginia, the exact same life he had in New Jersey. He attended church every Sunday, likely sitting in the pews and praying for the souls of the family he had slaughtered. The case was a dead end until 1989. The show America's Most Wanted was still new, and they decided to take a gamble on an 18-year-old cold case. But they had a problem. They didn't have a recent photo of John List. They hired Frank Bender, a forensic sculptor known for his uncanny ability to see through time. Bender studied John's bone structure and the aging patterns of his parents. He sculpted a bust of an older John List. He added sagging jowls, a receding hairline, and most importantly, a specific pair of thick, dark-rimmed glasses that Bender felt matched John's repressive personality. When the bust was revealed on national television, the likeness was terrifying. Over 20 million people were watching. One of them was a woman in Richmond, Virginia. She looked at the TV, then thought about her neighbor, the quiet accountant named Bob Clark. He wore those exact glasses. He had that exact receding hairline. The FBI swarmed the quiet Virginia suburb. When they confronted Bob Clark, he was calm. He denied everything. He insisted they had the wrong man. It was until they compared his fingerprints to the ones on file from 1971 that the truth came out. John List was brought back to New Jersey to face the ghosts of Breeze Knoll. During the trial, he showed no emotion. He spoke about the murders as if he were discussing a tax return. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms. John died in 2008, still claiming that his only sin was a mistake in judgment regarding how to save his family. Today, the mansion at Breeze Knoll is gone, destroyed by a fire of unknown origin shortly after the murders. But the story remains a dark stain on the American psyche, a reminder that sometimes the person sitting next to you in the church pew, the one with the perfect lawn, and the quiet voice is carrying a darkness that no amount of light can hide.